Today we're going to be showing you guys 3 separate knots that you have to learn to be able to efficiently offshore fish. We're going to show you guys how to tie your hook or your connection. I'm going to show you guys how to tie braid to braid or mono to mono, and then I'm going to show you guys a great knot for tying your leader material to your braid. The first one I'm going to do is tying your hook or your lure directly to your braid or your mono top shot. So if we're tying directly to braid here, we often do it for tuna fishing, or you're gonna tie directly to your mono, we're gonna use a uni knot. This uni knot is basically gonna be like this. You're gonna put it through the eye of your hook, you're gonna get yourself a nice tag end right here, you're going to double this part over like such. And then for braid, I do about 7 to 10 turns. For mono, I focus more on 5 to 7 turns. I'm gonna grab this doubled up section, holding it tight, and then I'm gonna take that tag end through the loop that we've created, and like I said, about 6 times there. Now when tying knots, lubrication is your best friend. Normally I just use the saliva from my mouth, but I'm just gonna do about 6 or 7 turns here. And then what you're gonna do is, you see you have your knot here, and I want it to basically pull from the tag end straight up and cinch down really nice. What I'm watching here is I'm pulling on my tag end. I'm just pulling on the tag end right now. You can see that knot really nicely form all together. None of the parts are going over the other part, and it's gonna cinch together really nicely. Your tag end is gonna cinch your knot. Pulling on your main line here back to your rod tip is going to pull the knot down. So I'm gonna do a little bit of both. Pull the tag end to cinch the knot, pull the main line to cinch it down. And then right there, you can see that it's very nicely seated onto my hook or my lure that I would be tying. And that's what you need to do for tying on your lure or your hook. The next knot I'm going to be explaining is the uni to uni knot. It's a great knot to splice braid to braid together or mono top shot to your fluorocarbon leader. Now, the best connection you're going to use for braid to braid is going to be a hollow core splice, but in a pinch, if you find a bad spot while you're out fishing, this is a great way to cut out the bad spot and then splice your braid together to keep on fishing. So it's a uni to uni knot. So yes, it's going to be the exact same knot twice done that we just did to our hook or our leader or our lure. So we've got both of these sides de-looped up here. I'm gonna take this side, both sections of braid, and I'm gonna do 7 to 10 turns for braid and about 5 to 7 turns for mono to fluorocarbon. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, arguably in any knot, the most important part is making sure this knot is going to seed correctly. So as I'm pulling on this tag end here, I'm gonna keep both of these strands with my other hand really tight, really straight, and making sure that this knot is gonna lay correctly. As you can see, perfect example, I've got a couple sides here that are wanting to kind of stick up. So I'm just gonna pull this knot apart and then keep pulling together, pull it apart, pull together. On a uni knot for mono and fluoro or for braid to braid, you don't wanna pull this knot too tight yet because we still have another side to do. So I'm gonna pull this stuff together, take my other side of my braid, do another uni knot over the top right here. Again, 7 to 10 turns for braid, 5 to 7 turns for mono. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right there, I've got it really nicely all together. And then again, I'm just gonna be pulling the tag end here, holding these 2 strands with my other hand, making sure it's going to lay very nicely. If it starts to get over the top, don't get into too much of a rush here. Pull that knot apart, together, apart, together, and then again, I'm not gonna seat it very, very tight because I still have one more step left. Now for your mono and your fluorocarbon knot for your leaders here, what you're gonna wanna do on this step is you're going to really make sure that you have a lot of lubrication, but for the sake of the video, I'm not gonna slobber all over my knot here. So I'm gonna pull, and you're gonna see both of these knots just really nicely come together. Now, if you've over-seated your knots, if you pulled too tight, this can be kind of tough, putting a lot of friction on your line. So you can see there, both uni to unis are gonna come tight. And then I'm just gonna give it a really good pull right there. Seed both of those together, and then you're gonna take your tag ends on braid. Not as important as on mono, but trim these tag ends pretty close. Using a little bit of a razor here, and I try to trim that one really close. Trim your other side. Right there is your uni knot. Now on your fluorocarbon and your mono side for connecting a leader, I would leave a little bit more of a tag in because mono and fluorocarbon are gonna have a little bit of that stretch and a little bit of a cinching period while you're fishing, but uni knot is a great way to connect braid to braid or connect mono to fluorocarbon. All right, y'all, for our third and final knot, I'm gonna show you one of our favorite connection knots to take your leader material, whether it's mono or fluorocarbon, to your braided line. We use this a lot for inshore fishing, nearshore fishing, and offshore fishing for big pelagics like yellowfin tuna. The first thing you're gonna do is take your mono section and take your braid, and I'm going to line this up by laying it over the top first. So I've got my braid right here and I've got my mono right here. What I like to do is lay it over the top, and I'm going to go up and over one time. Now the FG knot can be pretty intimidating for most people, but I promise you it's not that bad once you get good practice on it. So I'm gonna start by going, like I said, over, under, and over. That's going to start my knot. And while you guys do this knot here, I'm gonna always be pinching with my left hand or my non-dominant hand to make sure that this right here is always gonna stay. If I were to continue this knot, it would slide around a lot and be pretty tough to keep a hold of. So I've got my over, under, over to start my knot, and I'm just going to pinch that right there and save. This side is going back to my reel, and this side is what I would call my tag end. I'm gonna then take my tag end side and I'm gonna go under and over, and then I'm gonna go with my tag end side under and over. So all this knot is basically continuing to go under and over, under and over. Now as you can see, as I continue my knot, I'm continuing to hit the save button with this thumb. This is saving my progress and saving my knot. Most of the time you're gonna have more tension than I'm having right now coming back from my rod tip. I would keep the rod in a rod holder or have somebody hold a little bit of the tension, but for the sake of the video, I only have so many hands here. And then under, over with my tag end. The number that I'm aiming for total here is really 30. I like to do 30 total. You can go closer to 40 or 50 or 60, however much time you have, but you don't want to do too much, but you don't want to do too less for sure. If you ever forget what side of the knot you're on, it's always easy to just leave that index finger underneath. Take a look. I noticed that my tag end was the next one that needs to go, so I'm gonna put my thumb back over, under, over, put it over here, under, over, and you're just continuing to crisscross this. This is like a simplified version of a hollow core splice, a Chinese finger trap, because as this knot continues, it is going to cinch down on top of itself and really hold. The nice thing about the FG knot is once you tie it, once you get it seated, and once you get it cinched down really, really tight, the more you fish it, the tighter it is going to get. It is a knot that always clinches really, really tight. Under, over, and as you can see, I'm running out a little bit of tag end here, but I could keep going quite a bit, but I'm at my mark where I'm getting close to 29. Okay, and then the last one you're gonna always end on is not your tag end. You're gonna end on your main line side going back to the reel. So I'm gonna end on this side right here. You can see my knot without unraveling it here. It's very nice and tidy. Everything looks pretty tight and crossed over. So when I finish on my reel side, not on my tag end, I'm gonna then take the tag end, I'm gonna move this to where it's all in line coming up here. I'm gonna start my first half hitch knot. So my half hitches are basically going to be over the top of the braid and the mono. So I'm gonna do one half hitch, which is basically like a glorified overhand knot. And I'm going to make sure, I'm trying to do it so that you guys can see. I'm gonna make sure that this seeds over the top of both of them. I'm gonna pull it very, very tight. My first one especially, I wanna pull it very tight, down and up, and then down. So I'm gonna just seed this really tight. Try not to block your guys' view very much. But that right there is basically your save button. So now my knot is not gonna go anywhere, so I can let this left hand relax a little bit. And then I'm gonna continue to do 5 more or 6 total overhand knots. Braid. And for our 6th half hitch knot here, I'm gonna go ahead and call it. Now, as you've noticed, I'm really crossing my hands here because this is a mock-up knot, of course, but I'm really making sure that this knot is cinched down. Each and every half hitch is very cinched down. Now you can go for 8 or 10, but what you'll notice here is that when you do your half hitches all the same way, you get a really nice spiral right there at the end of your knot. Everything is seated down, and before we trim any tag ends or anything, we do what is called a pull test. So I'm gonna mock up a pull test a little bit here. I'm gonna pull on this braid really tight, and you can see that knot really just laying down. Now after a nice little pull test there, you're gonna pull to your application. So if we're gonna be running 17 pounds, 20 pounds of drag for yellowfin tuna, I really wanna make sure that I pull a little bit over just to test that knot. If I'm gonna be using inshore gear, make sure that you pull to the strike or the drag settings that you're gonna be fishing, because as you can see, there's a little bit of separation in that knot, which is zero problem whatsoever. But it does seed down and it almost pinches or grabs onto the mono. If there's a tiny bit of separation right here at the top of your knot, that's okay, but you don't want too much separation down here in the back. You can see the knot is nice and even. It's not gonna go anywhere. And since we've done our pull test, I'm going to take my pair of clippers. I'm going to get down close to that knot, because this knot is nice. It's meant to go in between our guides. What you can do now is you would just take a piece of, metal. Normally, most of the time I just push. Some guys will take a lighter, light the end of it, but I don't like flames next to my braid. So the last thing I'm gonna do is my finisher knot. After I've trimmed my tag end here, I'm just gonna take my last tag end of braid, go 1, 2, 3 times over. Again, seeding is always important, making sure that that knot's gonna be in line. You're gonna take this side here, and as this loop is creating, you're just going to make sure that everything forms nicely. Now, one tip I can give you guys about any knot you're ever tying is if it looks wrong, it probably is wrong. So make sure that your knot is seated correctly. If it's not cinching down or it looks off, as you can see here, a little bit of a cone. It's gonna protect the top of that knot, give my braid no slippage there, and then I'm gonna take my wire or my razor here, and I'm just going to trim that tag end very nicely without trimming part of my hand. Pow. All right. But if you ever do a knot and it doesn't just look right, always cut it and retie, my friends. Don't get in a rush with this knot. It's pretty complicated. Definitely encourage you guys to practice at home a lot. But the FG knot, one of our favorite go-to knots. All right, guys, there's the 3 fishing knots that you're going to want to know every time you go out fishing. We have our hook to lure connection, which is a uni knot. We have our braid to braid or our mono to mono connection, which is a uni knot. And then for your leader connection, whether it's mono or fluorocarbon to your braid, you have the FG knot. Get out there, catching big fish, baby. You.